Today I'm going to demo in a slightly bigger case. We've got the Arturia 6U rack brute, which is 84 HP. A little bit bigger than what we normally demo with, but I thought I'd give it a go because I wanted to do a demo of an oscillator that I've not shown before, which is the Ensemble oscillator. Now, this is a great oscillator, but the damn thing needs so much modulation. I've brought out the bigger case. Now, the other reason I brought out the bigger case is because I wanted to show you everything that I've always been doing in the palette case, which is over here, and all the modules that I've said, well, they're off screen. So the ones off screen are normally PAMs, which is here, giving us clock. We have Euclidean circles, which is also giving us our drum beats, and then the squid sample, which is giving us our kick and our hi-hat. Now, I have a new module today, which is the Kickall, which I will probably try and introduce into this patch. It might be part kick, it might be part bassline. I'm not quite sure yet, but it will work with the kick. So we'll see if we can get those sorted out together. But yeah, like I said, today, Ensemble oscillator. This is what I want to demo, but we need a lot of modulation for this. So first thing I'm going to do is set up the clocks and the resets. So I'm going to have the clocks on channel 2 here and the resets on channel 1. Have a buffer mult next to my clock, and I'll be using the top section for the clock and the bottom section for the resets, because my main modulation source today is going to be voltage block, because that works really well. There's so many modulation points here needed on the Ensemble oscillator, and you've got 8 points here on the voltage block, so we're going to be using that because we've got clock and reset here. The Metropolix is going to be my main sequencer, which has clock and reset. The Euclidean circles also has clock and reset here, which I'll be using for my drum sequencing. And then we'll probably, I'm not sure yet, but we'll probably be using the clocking on the Mimeophon as well. So let's get started. I'll set the clocks up and then we'll get going. Right, so now we've got our clocking sorted. Let's get the oscillators set up. Now, the reason that I've got such a big case today is because the Ensemble oscillator is not like any other modules that I've got, which all have built-in VCAs or possibly envelopes or all sorts of things. This is a pure oscillator with is it a stereo output? I'm not sure, but it has two different outputs, output A and output B. So we're going to use both of these outputs today. I have two sync bacinas here, which will give us our envelopes and our VCA. So we'll have output A into one, output B into one. Each of those will then go into our stereo dipole, which is a nice stereo filter. So we've got the A side and the B side, and then both of those will go into the Mimeophon and then out to our mixer, which is up here. So what we can do is we can give different length sequences from Metropolix and different pitch sequences from channel A and B. So we can be using, what I'm going to try and do is send pitch from one of the channels of track 1, and then I might somewhere send root in here as well, because you can modify the pitch, which is here, but you can also modify this root note as well. So we might have a go at two of them. But what you can end up with the Ensemble oscillator is the idea is I want to try and create maybe a slight more of a bass line from one of the channels, which will be on channel B here, which I'll be using as a low pass filter, so we'll get quite a low note. And channel A, I'll use a high pass filter on channel A here, and that way we can mix in our kick, we can mix in a high channel for our main A channel, and then a slightly lower for the B channel, and then after that we can also mix in some Mimeophon here, and what we're going to use is a very low color level and a high reverb, which will give us this nice low drone over the top. So that will give us a filtered drone, a nice low end bass line, but a slightly higher ARP line, and hopefully that will sit in the mix quite well. So let's get started and set that up. Okay, so we'll take output A into the first oscillator. In fact, no, let's color code these so that we can try and understand it a little better. So let's use the blue cable here to the input of channel 1. And then we will take that out into the A channel of our filter. Then we'll take a pink cable into our second input. And then take that output into the B channel. So that's both sides of our filter. And then we can then plug that into our Mimeophon. So if we take the blue side, which is channel A, and we'll take the dipole output into the left channel, and then the B dipole into the right channel. And then what I'm going to do is I'll just take the left channel off screen out here into my mixer. And then the same for the right channel. Okay, so that is the basics of the oscillator setup. The oscillator is going into an envelope and VCA in the same module, and we've got an A channel and a B channel going into an A filter and a B filter and a left side and a right side. No sound still. To get sound, we need to actually activate this envelope. So I need to gate this. So what we'll do is we will gate that from Metropolix. So Metropolix is running. So let's take our track 1 from Metropolix and gate. Let's just take Mimeophon out first so that we can just understand what's going on here. So this is just our first channel coming out of the main oscillator here. I've lowered it down and we're going through a high pass filter. If we do the same, I'll take the second channel out and we'll gate that here. And then I'll explain how I'm using this filter, because we can end up with two voices that both balance in the mix, because we're using a high pass filter on channel 1, which is the A output here, and we're using a low pass filter on the B channel. So if we take out channel A, we've got no sound. Now the reason we've got no sound is because we've got a low pass filter and we've got this main stereo filter knob turned all the way down, which will actually completely negate this channel. So if we increase this, you can now hear the bass line coming in, and as we increase that, it turns from a bass line into more of a lead. Now if we take out channel B and we put channel A in, when this is turned all the way up, for the same reason we get nothing, because this is a high pass filter and we've turned this all the way up, so we've got no sound coming through. So as we reduce this down, we should end up with sound. However, we've got no sound. Where's the deliberate mistake? I've actually plugged it into the wrong thing. It should have been plugged into the gate. I've plugged it into the output of the envelope. So let's go back into the gate and let's try that again. So here we go. And as we reach the bottom of this, this will give us the entire opened up sound. So when we actually decide to bring both of these in, this channel A will fade out as the bass line turns into the filter. So there's a point here where we've got a kind of a main lead and a bass line, and then we open it up further, the lead goes, but the bass line then will turn into the lead. So let's just see how that sounds. So I plug that back in on channel B. Now as I increase this filter here, you can hear the bass coming in. And as we keep going, channel A starts disappearing, but the bass line then opens up as well. So if we start modulating this, you can end up with something that actually sounds quite interesting. So what I'm going to do is modulate this later, but for now we'll just leave this a nice sort of bass line. There we go, we've got a nice bass line and a bit of main lead. In order to modulate that, we'll be using the stereo. In fact, no, let's do it now. So I need to modulate this stereo input here. So the good thing about stereo dipole is it has a lot of inputs that you can modulate. But not only that, you've also got attenuation points. Look at all these different attenuation pots here. You can overdrive, you can attenuate the frequencies, you can attenuate any resonance that's coming in, and you can attenuate these two, which is the stereo resonance and the stereo filter. I cannot say how useful these things are. It means that you don't need extra modules. Everything is doable within here. So what we need is an envelope so that we can attenuate this. Well, we can modulate this. So for this, I'm going to use the Javelin. The Javelin's got an envelope out, so let's see if we can use that. So I'll need to gate it from somewhere. I'll probably gate it. Let's gate it from the Euclidean circles, and then see if we can get something coming out. So I'm going to use channel. Let's use channel 4. Channel 1, 2, 3, 4. I think 3. Yeah, 3 might be enough. So let's send that into the gate here, and then you'll start seeing this 3 times per bar. And then let's send that envelope into the stereo FM and see what happens. I've got it set to maximum, so we should have a good effect here. Okay, that kind of works. I reckon that'll work quite well when we bring a beat in. So let's have a... Let's see how this sounds if we increase our release times. So from the A channel, let's just remind ourselves the A channel is this. B channel is this. So let's increase our baseline release time and see what happens. That's not doing anything. Maybe the lead release time? No, let's keep our release nice and short because we've got a long sequence here. I'll come to the sequencer in a minute. Let's just get this set up and then we'll start playing with the sequencer, and I'll start... For those of you that have never used Metropolix or a Metropolis, I'll just explain this briefly in a minute. So... we've got the basics of our main lead on channel A and our bass line on channel B here, all coming from the ensemble. So what else can we do with it? Let's have a play with some of the other parameters here and see if we want to modulate them. So we have warp. Let's have a play with the warp. So the warp kind of introduces a bit of noise, maybe. And some cross FM. Okay, a little bit of cross FM and a bit of warp. That will work well. What about some balance? Okay, so I think the balance fades, but I think it cross pans between the A and the B output possibly. So let's try and modulate that. Let's take a channel from our voltage block here. So voltage block gives us 16 steps of CV modulation. So let's try our balance. Okay, and then we'll try our warp. Send channel 2 into the warp. And then the cross FM. Oh, that's introducing the noise. So let's start at nothing. We'll send channel 3. We need to be really careful with this one because it can go a little bit mad. So let's just reduce it down to nothing. And then we'll just put a little bit in. So there's a fair bit of modulation going on there. Okay, let's come to the Metropolix now. So we haven't got any pitch modulation going in, and I've got some kind of random sequence here that's going to be root, root, third, root, fifth, fourth, root, root. So let's just go with that. So we'll send the pitch of track 1 out into the ensemble. Okay, so we haven't brought any effects in yet. I'm going to just deliberately keep these, keep the effects off for now, just so I can explain what Metropolix is doing here. So you can see the pitch sequence here with Metropolix. And the great thing about Metropolis and Metropolix, the predecessor and this one, is that you can just randomly play with these. We've got the Aeolian scale here. And you can just create any kind of 8-note sequence that will sound good. I promise it will sound good. However, there are other things that you can do. What I didn't realise is that I had step 2 here on 3. So let's just bring that down for now. And we'll set everything to play 1 note. So here we've got 1 note for every single step, so we just got an 8-note sequence repeating, repeating, repeating. Now the beauty of this sequencer is that you can create sequences you never thought you would be creating. If you're in Ableton, you've got to manage this thing to the nth degree to get what you want. Here, what you can do is just, if we just move this, so as this is a note that's higher, it'll be easier to spot. So let's just, so what's happening now is I've set 3 pulses in this 8-note sequence. So we now have an 11-note sequence, but it's only playing 1 note. So it's almost like a rest. We can actually not play it, which will actually create a rest. But you can play it so it plays it once. If we go to the next, it will play each one of those 3 as separate triggers, so it will create a proper 11-note sequence. So that's an 11-note sequence now. Let's go for 2 on this one. So we're now playing 3 triggers here. We're playing 1 trigger here with 1 note rest. If you really want to, you can actually play it as 1 long note. The difference between playing it here and at the top is that it will keep the gate open. This one down here will shut the gate, so you'll get that 1 tone. At the top here, if any of the CV is changing the pitch will change. So you can hear that the pitch is changing within that note there. Whereas if we bring it down here, we only hear the first note. So we'll play that all 3. We'll play that all 3 triggers. Another thing that's quite interesting is possibly on the last note, increasing the count on the last kind of creates a pause. You can actually turn it off, which without a drum beat is not very good. So let's just put that back on. So we'll just reduce that down for now. We'll stay with what we've got. I'll introduce a drum beat, and then we'll introduce a little bit of effects, and then we'll start playing. Okay, so for the drums, we're going to create a standard kick off the Squid sample, and we'll create a hi-hat. Okay, so channel 1. Channel 1 here is 4 on the floor. So now we're triggering channel 1, and then we'll send that out into our mixer. There's our kick. Let's take our hi-hat off channel 3 down here. So here comes the kick, here comes the hat, sorry. And then we'll try and bring in the kickall and see if we can, because that bass, that kick is not the best. So let's try, we're already using channel 4 here. So let's use channel 2. So we'll trigger the THACO here. We've actually got 5 notes there. Let's see if that works. Might work, I'm not sure yet. And let's send that out to our mixer as well. Okay, so that's not quite tuned, so we might need to just tune that. Okay, and then I think possibly sending an envelope to the decay might help, so let's try that. Just use channel 8 here. We reduce the decay down. In fact, let's just take off our ARP for now so that we can hear this. I think that works quite well without. I just like a little bit of decay here. Yeah, there we go. Yep. Okay, let's bring back in our bass line. And then bring our main ARP in. Right, that's a little harsh, so let's just take the, let's just increase the filter. So like I was saying, our main ARP, if we start bringing the filter down, you've got more of the high frequencies here, and the bass then starts fading out, so we can end up just with the one. That's just the A channel coming out of the ensemble. And as we increase, we'll start filtering that out, and then the bass line will start coming in. So it's not too harsh there, in the art was a little bit overpowering at the lower bringing. So if we just filter it out a little bit, I think that's around about right. Okay, let's bring the Mimeophon in. Let's see if we can put some effects on this. So I've done demos of Mimeophon before. If anyone wants to see those, check out my previous videos. But the idea here is that we are just going to bring in a small amount of the effects. We got the color turned way down, so it's giving us a lot of low frequencies. That's basically filtering everything out. But we've also got very high halo, which will give us a lot of reverb. So we're getting a lot of kind of low drone. So if we go full on the mix here, this is what's coming through. If we turn the color up, you get a lot of the higher frequencies coming through. Now that effect in itself is quite nice, but we're going to bring the main mix back in. Now it's arguable where you actually place this, because when you're coming in from full wet, kind of 2 o'clock always sounds very good because you're so used to the wet. If you start from 0 and then you start bringing in the wet, it usually sounds good around about 10, 11 o'clock. So, you know, it's whatever suits you. I kind of like it around about here, so we're gonna stick with that. Right, so there's the basis of the main patch that we've got here. So I'm just going to do a little bit of a demo on the Metropolix now, just to show how, because this is kind of, it's giving us the same ARP over and over again, but the benefits of having something like Metropolix is that you can kind of create stepped ARPs. So within this standard pattern that we've got here, we can kind of create certain steps that step up and down in pitch. So I'm going to demonstrate that now by using the accumulator. So if we click edit, you get a different color for each of the different things that you can do per step. So we're going to go for accumulator, so everything will be highlighted this pinky color. And the main steps that I want to adjust here are probably going to be these two, because they're of the highest frequencies. So as we go up, we can just start bringing them down throughout different, as it goes through bar after bar. So for this one, what we're going to do is we're going to use 7 semitones, because I think that's a 5th. So let's go to 7, and then you can hear it start coming down. And then it'll repeat. Now, to program that on a standard sequencer or on a DAW would take me some brain power. And yeah, I would come up with that, and it might take me a couple of hours, and I'll think, oh yeah, that's really, really good. On here, all you need to do is just play with a couple of knobs and go, oh, that sounds really nice. Yep, let's keep that. So let's do the same then on this 6th channel here. So let's move across. Let's stick with the same 7, so they should move together. But if you don't want them to move together, you can create, as you can create polyrhythms, you can also get the ARP moving, because if I move this one to just maybe 3, you can hear that the 5th and the 6th step are doing very different things now. And similarly with moving the tones, we can actually affect the overall rhythm of these 8 steps by maybe putting a delay in. So if we take the last step, maybe 3 steps. That just sounds about the right sort of delay there. Always have to play with the filter. Okay, so what else can we do? We've had a good play with Metropolix, we've got our effects set, we've had a good play with the filters, that's all set up. We've got a little bit of modulation going on here from Voltage Block. I've kind of filled out the case with a quantizer, so maybe we can set the quantizer. So just looking here, I have no idea what scale this is set to, but we have the root, the 3rd and the 5th of the same Aeolian minor scale here. So we can use Voltage Block to create a new arp here, and possibly we could send that to the root note of the ensemble, which might... The root note will actually, if we play with the root note here, it can affect the sound quite significantly. So as we go down, I mean, maybe an LFO would work well with that. But if we play, we could play that maybe a little bit. So let's give that a go. So if we let's send 1 volt per octave from channel 7. And then we'll send output A into the root note of the ensemble. So you can probably hear that that's moving the root note around a little bit already. In fact, I think I'm just going to leave it there actually, that's quite good. I always start with Voltage Block, I never reset it, I always leave whatever CV I've had before, because if you plug it into something, quite often you find it gives you a really good result straight off the bat, so I never reset it. Or I just click random on every channel. Okay, let's try it without the root note. And then with. Yeah, that works. Yeah, we'll stick with that. Okay, what else can we do? Let's increase the rest time at the end. And let's take our main arp out. So we just end up with a bass line, and we can do that by increasing the high pass filter frequency here, so it just stays very, very high. But the bass line still comes through. Now if we want more of the bass line to come through, a little bit higher frequency, because we've lost a lot of frequency there, we've got a bit of a hole, we can actually just go up with the filter here. So now we've got more of the bass line hitting the mid-range. Actually, that's sounding quite good at the higher ranges. Let's just keep going up. And that's fully open. And then let's go back. And even though that high pass filter has been opened way, way high, we can still bring some of it back on the stereo filter here. Which is why I love the stereo dipole so much. It's so flexible. You can send different oscillators to the A and B side. You can do like I've done today, where I'm sending just one oscillator from its A and B points into each side of the filter, which that always works. If you have any kind of stereo module, sending it into the dipole works really, really well. Okay, another thing that we can do with the Metropolix is currently we have both the A and the B channels from the oscillator having 8 steps each. Okay, it's not 8 steps, but they've both got the same number of steps here with the same number of steps per step, so they always have the same steps. But what we can do is we can send a different number of steps into the primary oscillator. So let's just bring that back in. So just so we can remind ourselves, that's the primary oscillator. Now if we set the length of this, we could just set it to 1 step and it will always play the same note. So let's try that. So now track 1's just playing 1 note. Track 2 though, the bass line is still playing 8 notes, which isn't kind of what people normally do. They normally do it the other way around, but I'm just doing it for the demo here. If we introduce it to 2, it will do exactly the same. There's no difference. If we introduce a 3rd step, we'll get a slightly different note. If we go to 5, then we'll introduce this note, which is also the first note that we've got on our accumulator. So if we don't want the accumulator on the main, we can go back to 4. So you can kind of create almost A and B sections here. And then if we want to bring in the melody again, we just go up to 6 steps. Or maybe go to 7. We could put a big rest on 7. So yeah, I mean that's pretty much it. I just wanted to try a slightly different demo today with a bigger case. Still only the 1 oscillator. I'm really keen on creating patches with 1 oscillator. When I started off Modular, I bought far too many oscillators. I probably have 6 or 7 oscillators, maybe even more actually. I rarely use more than 2 oscillators on a patch. I might have one for a bass line and one for a lead, but I'm kind of trying to just play around with just using the one main oscillator. Obviously you've got your drums going on, but within a patch you don't need too many oscillators, and it's something that I fell foul of when I got into this hobby. You think, I need a new sound source, I need a new sound source. You see a review and you think, that sounds awesome, that sounds absolutely awesome, I must have one. Well, no, the reason that it sounds awesome is everything else going on in the case is making it sound awesome. If you just play that ensemble oscillator on its own, it does nothing. You need the modulation points. Something like voltage block gives you 8 points of modulation, 16 steps of modulation, 8 channels. You can have multiple save points. You can load different saves, so you can create a nice 16-note step. You can create maybe 3 or 4 versions of that, whether it's just modulation points or whether you're pitch sequencing. You can recall them on demand, so you can actually use this as a fully playable sequencer. It's super powerful. I also have a variegate, which I kind of like, but I don't find myself using it as much as this. It was in the case next to it because the two sync together, but I find myself using the voltage block a lot. It's like in the palette case, I've got Mimetic Digitalis. This is like a Mimetic Digitalis, but okay, it's twice as big, but it is kind of more playable. It has more save points, has the same number of steps. It's easier to play. Mimetic is very much create random things, keep creating random things until good stuff comes out. This is just a bit more playable, but I love them both, so that is an awesome module. I love it. I think I'm going to love the Squid and Kickall as well. I found that I'm doing an 808 kick on the Squid sample regularly, and it's not the samples are good, but you don't find yourself modulating them very much. You kind of set and forget. Whereas having something that can do a proper kick, you can find that you can find nuances that you wouldn't find just from a pure sample. So having a proper kick module, I think, has benefited me. Everyone needs envelopes, everyone needs VCAs. You can't get enough of them. These two, very, very good. They combine, they're only 4 HP each, and you get an envelope and a VCA in each. Other good modules would be Quad VCA, which I've got off screen, which is part of my mixer. Also, I think I'm going to get a Quadrax as well, because I do need more envelopes. Metropolix, can't say enough about this. It creates music for you. You tweak knobs and stuff comes out, and it's always good. I love it, so that is definitely a keeper. Always need a good effects module. Mimeophon is almost in every patch. I've got a Rainmaker, which I love playing with, but it takes up a lot of space, and I must say it's not in every patch. It's maybe in 1 in 10 things that I'm playing at the minute. The Mimeophon, it just gives you everything you need. It's not cheap. It's £350, £375, which is probably about $450, but it is super playable. I don't often find the Make Noise modules intuitive, but this I find super intuitive. Filter, reverb, mix, clock the rate, set your repeats for your delay, and if you want to, you can just hold and it'll create your background drone. So that is a super good module. You've probably not seen this in any of my tutorials yet, the Stereo Dipole. I've always had the small palette, and I've always gone on about how I love the carbon filter module, which isn't in here, which normally sat next to the Javelin. I do love that. I love it in the small case. It's a great module. For what it does, it's brilliant. However, the Stereo Dipole is my go-to filter. absolutely brilliant. I love it. You can overdrive it. You can drive each side separately. You can drive them in parallel. They have dipoles on each side, so you can create quad oscillators. Like I've said before, if anyone wants to see this used as an oscillator, creating seventh chords, I think I've managed to get a nice seventh chord out of it. It's really good, really good. The ensemble is something that I've always wanted to try. I'm very much, I love techno. However, to make noise engineering modules are good for several things, but creating nice ARPs isn't what I would use them for. We've got plats, I've got rings, and I've also now got this, which I really, really like. The fact that you can spread the notes, and it's got multiple notes that will come out of it. It's got the A and the B side, and you can modify the root note as well, which I really, really like. So it's almost like a chord stroke ARP generator. So really, really liking that. But yeah, I hope you've enjoyed this. Slightly different format today, a bit more of a work in progress. Not such a quick to the point demo, but I hope you'd enjoyed this patch from scratch. Every time I've tried it, it's come out different, but I'm quite happy with this one. So I'm just going to play it out, and yeah, hopefully see you next week.